Your 28-day alchemical cycle. What does it mean? How do we track it? And is this really consistent with science? The male and female dynamic, where does that come into play? Are the things that people are saying online true and accurate? We're going to go over all those today. I am Professor Matt. Today I look a bit different. I've got to go to a really nice event later, so I'm all spiffed up. But I wanted to, at the very least, give you guys a video. I didn't make one yesterday. I got exceedingly busy. Had to take care of a couple of different tasks in my personal life. I also got the dishwasher running in the background, so sorry and apologies for all the background noise if you do hear that. But let's just get right in. Let's get started with this. So, first and foremost, what is this alchemical cycle? The alchemical cycle in general is basically it's a projection of not just our psychological cycle, but also our physiological cycle. Everybody knows that we have a toroidal sphere, all right, a torus field of energy. And this torus field of energy dictates a lot of things about the way that we perceive reality, not just like physiologically, as I mentioned, but psychologically too. This is deeply ingrained and rooted into our bodies. Every month, well, basically every day you undergo what's called mitosis. Mitosis is really the key purveyor of life, okay? It is the singular activity that begins at conception when the sperm meets the egg. The very first process that we do is we split apart. So remember when we talk about archetypes and we talk about God creating everything, God had to split parts of itself off in order to keep everything in reality, working, because it was the pure prime source. So it splits itself into 2 and then 4 and then 8 and et cetera, et cetera. And that is where we get all these different frequencies. That's where we get all these different archetypes. Okay, so, theoretically speaking, the more that the mitosis occurs, the less and less and less we are, the more we're moving away from our root source frequency, right? Like, think about back when you were a kid, everything was a lot simpler. Not just because you didn't have responsibilities and such, but because the world was just a better place. And everybody's childhood's different. Some people go through extreme trauma and stuff during childhood. However, that's not the point here. The thing that we really need to understand fully is that frequency and vibration are the keys to unlocking this alchemical process from within. I'm going to go over the sciences of like the hormones and things like that today, but ultimately it is your emotional state. It is the energetic state that you take on, which really determines your body's ability to maintain health, wealth, happiness, all of that. So if you are interested in learning more of these topics, real quick plug, please consider joining my online university, Psycosmos University, or getting my AI tool, Astraya, both of which can be found in the description. If you go to the Linktree link, you can find both of these in there. I have tons of courses. I actually just added 2 new ones, the Advanced Psychology course and the Herbology and Herbalism courses. So if that interests you, go check that out. If not, you can also check out my AI tool. It comes with an alchemy tracker, so you can actually track your alchemical cycle through my app. And it is working on mobile phones, so if that does interest you, go check that out. Now, getting back to center here with what we're talking about. The alchemical cycle is not just physiological, it is a psychological projection. This mitosis cycle, the hero's journey essentially is the mitosis cycle. It basically is the same as, a mitosis cycle, which is what prolongs our life. Like, I can actually Google it. I didn't, but I should have had this prepared. But you can relatively see the stages of mitosis, right? And you'll see that, it goes essentially circular. Once you go through cytokinesis here, you go back to the center stage of mitosis. And what's funny is some cells split and then they lose the ability to undergo mitosis. Some cells, there's a better graph. I'm looking for the cytokinetic graph here. But there's essentially stages, right? And there's a lot of ways that this can go wrong. There we go. No, I just saw it. Where'd it go? It was just there. Yeah, here we go. This is exactly what I was looking for. So this phase. Okay, you undergoing mitosis, going through the cytokinesis, and then you go through interphase again. This is basically where it starts, right here, down here, and then it goes through that, it splits, and then it continues, right? Because that cell can also split. Sometimes it doesn't split. Sometimes it splits in the wrong way, and you create a cancer cell. And by the way, we create a lot of cancer cells over the course of our entire life. When we live outside of the scope of what we're supposed to be doing, we actually create a lot of cancer cells. So not really the best outlook to have, I guess, if you want to take everything into consideration. It's like this is really where we're turning darkness into light. But this also follows the hero's journey. I mean, you can even see that it's split into like mainly 3 phases, very similar to the hero's journey. So again, it's not just a physiological thing. This is a psychological phenomenon as well. The entire birth, death, and rebirth. Excuse me 1 second. Hey, don't go on. Sorry, cat was jumping around. We have a lot of different phases of this process, right? So essentially, the psychological interpretation here would be this is how we see everything in life. There's always a beginning, there's always a middle aspect of it, of initiation, then there's always an ending to it. But furthermore than that, really what we want to look at, not just the 12 aspects of the hero's journey, the 12 zodiacal signs, 12 cranial nerves, 12 ribs in the rib cage, it's really the toroidal energy, the toroidal story of physiology. So every month, our body needs to take aspects from the body itself and bring them up into the mind, or else, we basically advance in aging and we become, we stray further away from our original source frequency, which is what our goal is. We come in with a source frequency, which is, the highest attainable frequency for us as individuals. We often find this in childhood for most people. Some people don't discover it until adulthood because their childhoods are tough or whatever happens, But our whole journey is to kind of go back to the source of all things. And that's actually the physical reflection of what death is, because we're going back to that source. So let's talk a little bit about hormones. Everybody knows that females have a monthly hormonal cycle that lasts roughly 28 days in accordance with the moon, the lunar object in the sky. The moon is the purveyor of this monthly cycle for women and men, and we're going to get into that in a second. But as you can see, we've got, menstruation, follicular, ovulation, where a lot of things spike here, and then luteal. So this is very synonymous with that mitosis cycle, right? Because the ovulation would essentially be this phase here, the mitosis cytokinesis. All right, it's all wrapped in a beautiful package here. The S phase, maybe the start of it, would be the menstruation. Okay, some people believe it's vice versa, right? Some people think it's it's inverted in that sense, that this would be ovulation and then this would be the menstruation. But we're pretty sure, basically, if you were to map the hormonal cycle of the female onto a mitosis-related cycle, this is the exact same cycle, the same type of cycle that a woman undergoes in her monthly hormonal cycle. This is the alchemical process. And just because we've renamed things estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, just because we have all these fancy scientific names doesn't take away from the fact that this is exactly what our ancestors were studying and trying to maintain to their optimal level. Now, we can see here, right, you've got menstruation, follicular, ovulation, luteal, right? This is, right, the start of the cycle here. Hold on, this cat is being silly. Stop being so silly. This start of the cycle is very synonymous with the mitosis. So, essentially what we're doing here is we're mapping this out, and additionally, males also have hormonal cycles, so I've got some science for you. We know that men go off of daily rhythms, okay? But we also are understanding now, with limited evidence, obviously, but I mean, I ran my own case study for my own dissertation. I found that to be the case. We are finding that men also have infradian rhythms, right? Multi-day and ultradian rhythms, biologically plausible that hormone levels pulse on multiple time scales. Okay, evidence for monthly, okay, circa-lunar, that's what they're called essentially. Patterns in some human studies, monthly patterns of testosterone behavior in men from a study in 2002. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. And the takeaway is a 28-day interval appeared in testosterone peaks only in a subgroup, paired men wanting children. Okay, so they found it in the subgroup where men were syncing with women, But I do believe that all men undergo through this monthly cycle, and maybe you need a woman in order to cohabitate and sync with. And this is really like the root of why relationships are important. But essentially, the circulunar testosterone study, right, which did daily saliva over 30 days, in the visual spatial takeaway, daily saliva sampling studies have reported circulunar patterns in some men. Evidence exists, but it is not unanimous, and sample sizes are modest. Well, it's not unanimous because, think about it this way. The men who are in relationships are probably the prime men, right? Due to all those types of psychological indicators like, I'm blanking on the names right now. But basically where women are always looking for straight women, specifically heterosexual women, hypergamy. They're hypergamous. In other words, they're looking for most of them, and this is of course like shifted a lot. All right, this has shifted a lot in the last 20 or 30 years. But if we're looking at the thousands of years of human history, women were cross-culturally hypergamous, right? They were very much so looking for a man that could provide for them, for children and, homemaking purposes and all that. That's just obvious, okay? We don't have to say it's sexist or patriarchal. It's just what it was, okay, back in the day. I'm not really big on just hurling these like little, tropes and idiosyncrasy, idioms onto looking at the past, right? Like the past is the past. We have today, and women are still doing this today. So we know that this is a biological thing. And furthermore, men are also seeking relationships, and women are seeking relationships at a higher pace than ever before. I know the data says otherwise. Like, men and women don't want to date. They don't want to be in a relationship with each other, whatever. But it's really just kind of a call to action. It's more of like being a crybaby, I guess you could say. Not to put down a lot of those people. I know that the relationship issue right now is a big one, but basically it's just people crying. That's what a lot of this is, which is fair because a lot of things have changed. But what we do know is that the men who are essentially the peak males, the ones that women are getting in relationships with, we're not talking about the bums and the losers, right? Because those do happen too. But we're talking about the peak males. They're the ones who are seeing the best 28-day cycles. When you think about it, of course it makes sense. When you're in a relationship, you're generally happier. And sometimes, for some people, they get worse. But most of the time, if you're in a happy relationship, people get better. They advance in their relationship. So, I'm looking out for that cat because she's so silly. She goes and she always is getting into trouble somehow. Nothing ever major, though. I love her very much. But anyway, going back to it, it seems as though our peak males in society are the ones that are showcasing a lot of these advanced forms of circulunar testosterone cycles. I'm sorry if I'm a little, scatterbrained and hectic today. I've been running around all morning. So the seasonal and circa annual variation paper, okay, longer term changes of seasonal variation. So men have seasonal patterns, they have daily patterns, and they do have monthly patterns as well. Short synthesis is that yes, they're possible, but they're not universal, is basically what the modern science has found. But no, that's just looking purely from the perspective of measuring testosterone. They're not measuring a lot of the other parts of the hormones that are also within the body. They're not measuring for inner alchemy, right? They're just purely looking at testosterone. And that's going to shift for a lot of men, especially based off of their emotional states, because testosterone and emotional states are very tied. Okay, so when we look at the male cycle, generally speaking, it peaks at 6 in the morning and then it dwindles down. This is very similar to a man's sacred secretion as well. Basically, he's normal for most of the month, but then he's got that 7 days where he should really be taking better care of himself, because this is where his testosterone is going to be peaking more than likely. And I've had a lot of men, one of the big things that I hear from a lot of men who practice this is during that time of the month is when I get the absolute horniest. And I tell them, yeah, it's because your body is trying to ensure that it's ready to take in this process, and you have to. It's really, even the nadons, the Chinese nadon Tao alchemists, they've studied this very extensively, obviously for a very long, hundreds of years. And basically their philosophy is it doesn't even really matter the liquid. You should not spill one single drop is what they say. However, the jing, right, the essence, the energy, is not actually in the fluid itself. The fluid is a holder of the energy. So it's not really the fluid itself. You're not actually, theoretically speaking, of course, you're not actually utilizing the hormones fully, right? The hormones are there, and you don't want to disrupt what they naturally do. You don't want to expel your seed. You don't want to fail in that regard, spilling the cup of Hermes, because that will basically harm the process of the Philosopher's Stone. That's the whole theoretical model here, and when you actually put it to practice, it makes total sense, and a lot of men agree. So even though they're a little bit different, most of the time these hormonal fluctuations you'll see, like the men's rise and then it dwindles, the woman's rise and then it dwindles. The woman's crash is a lot harder, whereas the men's are not. It's much more of a fizzling out. But I would say that women's ovulation is a lot more powerful as well. Their ability to manifest on this plane of existence is a lot higher, which is why a lot of women now are like, you don't need a man and blah, blah, blah. I think Vogue came out with some article that said it's embarrassing to have a boyfriend. But all that's just there to kind of stir the pot, guys. It's not real. Like, none of that stuff is really real. If you can get, everybody wants to be in a happy relationship. Like, you're not going to find a person unless they have trauma, unless they understand they have to work on themselves, or they just really do prefer being alone. Some people are like that. But if you were to ask most people are going to tell you, I would love to have a loving relationship. So ultimately speaking, what we're talking about here in the inner alchemical process is tracking your month to month, okay? And this is important for men and women. Again, if you're interested, my AI tool will help you do this for you. Here it is, Astraya.ai. You can get this even in the basic package of $15 a month. But if you'd rather do it yourself, or if you already are doing it and you understand this, basically this cycle of mitosis is the same cycle that we can map to life and death. We can map this to hormonal, menstrual ovulatory. We can map this to the daily cycle of testosterone, the monthly cycle of hormones for men, the yearly cycle for men, okay? And women too have semblances of daily and yearly hormonal cycles. It's just that men are more ruled by the sun and women are more ruled by the moon, so it showcases in different ways. However, we all have daily, monthly, and yearly cycles, even weekly, in fact. That's less about the chemical aspect of it, but the weekly cycles are more psychological, because it's like each of these phases, right? Like it's like where's that here? It's like this. It's like you go through 1 month, 2 month, 3 month. There's a season right there, right? Because here's your 4 weeks, here's your 4 weeks, here's your 4 weeks, right? So it's like this is like 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 1 month, 2 month, 3 month. So you go spring, summer, fall, winter, right? Like you can map this to any type of cycle, and that's because we are cyclical creatures, and that is what spirituality is all about. Spirit is a spiral, so it's understanding the spiral, because you're trapped in it. There's nothing you can do. You're just spiraling. Now, do you want to spiral up or do you want to spiral down? That's the real question. So ultimately, long story short, what we're getting at here is understanding this process, mapping it to your body, understanding the deep complexities of it, and living this. And if you want to learn more on how to do that, again, come work with me one-on-one setting, come join my online university, or check out my AI tool if you'd rather do it yourself. All of these things are affordable. Working with me is probably the most expensive route, but if that does interest you and you need that hands-on clarity and clarification, then come reach out to me. But just, as a loving message here, make sure that you're ready in a position to basically not only pay the funds, but also to move forward in your life. I may be a professor, I may be a doctor, but I'm not a therapist. I'm not a clinical psychologist. I want to put it that way, okay? So I actually don't have a license to be, therapizing people, all right? And that's like part of the whole, that's part of my whole brand, right? I'm more of a life coach, I'm more of a professor, and yes, you can call me doc, but I'm not here to be a therapist, right? I have an AI tool. It is built for deeper psychological conversations, but if you're like suicidal, if you're going through severe depression and anxiety, I'm not the person that you want to work with, okay? I'm more of a coach where we look at where you are now and where we're going to head towards the future. So if this was fun, if this was engaging, come work with me. Again, apologies for the cat and apologies for the weird get up today and the background noise and everything. But I love you guys and I wanted to get this quick video out there. And if you have any questions or you want to see other further content, drop a comment down below. But I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Sending lots of love, many blessings. Take care.